Hey everyone, welcome back to I Am Silent No More. I am your host, Lynz Piper-Loomis. I have a dear friend joining me today, Annie, and I'm really excited because I've moved over to back to my platform and Ex American News. So if you haven't been seeing me over at Patriot TV, that's okay. Now you can catch me on my website, lynz.co, Rumble, at Ex American News on X, and on some other platforms. So, anyways, welcome, Annie. I'm so excited you're here.
I am super excited to be back on your show. It's a little earlier morning than usual, but I like it.
Yeah, same here. And so Annie and I've actually become even greater friends, but we've become good friends just through we connected up in Ohio when America's Future was up there. And I'm going to keep a lot of the dialogue back on our background because I've already talked about her before. She's amazing. She's a former Iranian child bride. Her grandma helped get her out, and then she came over to America when she was 18. And she has a website called Live Up to Freedom?
.com?
Live up to freedom.com. Look at that, guys. I'm actually getting it right. But anyways, I have some breaking news that I'm going to go on my X and share this because this is a big deal. I told y'all I'm going to start digging out down deeper in South Carolina and in other parts of the country where some of this stuff is happening. We've got a lot of things going on with regard to and I'm making sure that my noise is not on here, guys. I don't know if it's live on my X, but it's here. But I'm relabeling this podcast series Counter-Terrorism. I'm countering the terrorism that is happening inside of the Republican Party and the GOP. This is a big deal to me for a lot of different reasons. But anyways, it looks like I got it reposted, so we're good. I don't know how all of that's going, but Annie is an expert in the things of the Islamic State and the connections. And I've already written an article last year, and we'll come to that in a second. But as I've been digging deep into the relations of the Islamic State and how they're working with our legislators, I want to talk to you about my own representative and some of the Republican legislators in South Carolina. In the article, I shared with you how they are knowingly working with CAIR, Council on American Islamic Relations, that is founded by Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. Okay. So I decided to start digging back because Chris Murphy, not Connecticut House federal representative, but South Carolina State House representative Chris Murphy, who's missed over 3,000 votes, by the way, since he came into office. He was the former head of the Judiciary Committee. I think it was like 2020 until he was removed because of his drinking problem, which he put out publicly. So we can talk about this. He got his wife in as a judge, Maite Murphy, and his brother in as a judge. Not long after he was elected, South Carolina elects their own judges. Nepotism much? So anyways, I went back. There was a former representative from Myrtle Beach, Representative Clemens. So we're going to get this piece of legislation up. It's from 2017, 2018. And this was a House resolution that actually, from what I can see, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but it never made it out of Judiciary Committee. It stayed there. It was to call upon all law enforcement. And by the way, former South Carolina Representative Clemens was a Republican legislator, and now he is a judge. But anyways, is to call upon all law enforcement and governmental agencies to suspend all contacts and outreach activities with the Council on American Islamic Relations, whereas the Federal Bureau of Investigations has suspended all formal contacts with the Council on American Islamic Relations due to evidence demonstrating a relationship with Hamas, and whereas in the largest successful terrorism financing prosecution in United States history, the U.S. versus the Holy Land Foundation, CAIR was identified as a Muslim Brotherhood front group and was named as an unindicated co-conspirator in the trial, and whereas CARE opened up its first office in Washington, D.C., with the help of a grant from the Holy Land Foundation, a charitable organization that was shut down by the U.S. Department of Treasury for funding jihadist terrorist organizations, and whereas the United Arab Emirates, an ally of the United States, designated CARE as a terrorist organization in 2014, and whereas in March 2011, Muthana al-Hanoudi, one of CARE's directors, was sentenced to 1 year in federal prison for violating U.S. sanctions against Iraq. And whereas the co-founder of CARE's parent organization, the Islamic Association for Palestine, Seme al-Arian, which I'm probably murdering that, was sentenced to 57 months in prison on terrorism charges for financing Palestinian Islamic Jihad, an organization designated by the U.S. Department of State as a terrorist organization. And whereas Ghassan Elashi, who served as a founding board member for CARE's regional chapter in Texas. Okay, so this is what we're showing you. This piece of legislation never made it out of Judiciary Committee. Now, Clemens went on, he withdrew. There's some stuff that was happening with him, but now he's a judge, a master and equity judge in South Carolina. All right, this is the thing. He was trying to get this pushed. Now, I'm trying to establish to you that South Carolina State House Representative Chris Murphy was the head of Judiciary Committee. Why did he not bring that up out of committee? Because when he became the head of Judiciary, that piece of legislation could have been brought forward. Now, coming years later, and I broke this story last year on 9/11, around 9/11, because I was digging deep into the 9/11, the hate crimes bill. So we'll pull up that article right quick, and then we're going to talk about this. So this piece, never forget 9/11, why is the GOP supporting legislators that support terrorist groups that have been deemed terrorist groups by our own government? Now, the hate crimes bill, South Carolina hate crimes bill, is being brought forward with CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations in South Carolina. And South Carolina State House Representative Chris Murphy, there is a YouTube video in here where he's actually defending it at the former GOP, Dorchester GOP reorg. Like, he's sitting here defending it. There was a patriot that, put that in there. There is South Carolina State House Representative Gary Brewer, who said that the Constitution needed reinforcement for this hate crimes bill. That's what he told me. Because the Constitution wasn't satisfactory enough. So we're going to work with a terrorist organization in order to get legislation passed. South Carolina Representative Gil Gatch, all of these guys are down in Dorchester County. All right. They're serving at the state house level. Now, they also worked with a whole bunch of other Democrats. So as I'm digging through their finances and looking at things, it's really interesting to see where their priorities lie. Now, I'm still pulling all of that. I'm not going to bring you receipts for it, but I broke this story last fall. And it is my plan to continue to expose corruption in South Carolina and in other places with these at the local level. Because if we see it happening at the national level, it happened at the local level first. And where General Flynn says national action or local action equals national impact. So Annie, come on here. Let's talk about this because she is an expert in this stuff. And so I want you to give me your assessment about why this guy, when he was head of judiciary after this bill, the bill was in there in 2018 and he came to be head of judiciary. Why wouldn't you bring that up out of there? Mark this as a terrorist organization, and now you're working with there. And let me just say one more thing. In my article, there's multiple article links where CARE reiterates its support in working with these men on this piece of legislation. This is not saying here this is Sharia law, but it's opening up the pathway to Sharia law at the local level without using Sharia as the topic. So Annie, I'm gonna shut up because I really want you to tell me your assessment of this bill that was there in 2018, and the Republican Party hasn't brought it forward. But Chris Murphy was the head of judiciary in 2020, and I think through 2022 when he had to leave, and he never brought this. He didn't bring this forward. Why would he leave that stuck in judiciary and now he's working with a terrorist organization? And does that make these guys terrorists working with terrorists?
Well, I don't want you to shut up because you're one of the rare people out there who understand this topic. We have 20 minutes to unpack 20 years of discussion. So let me dive in. Based on what you said, before we get to the bill, let me introduce a book to your audience just in case if they're not familiar with it. Right here, Muslim Mafia. Get this book, read this book. I don't know if you've read this before, Lynz. It is by David Gobbets and Paul Sperry. Okay? This book was put together by undercover work of Chris Gobbets, David Gobbets' son. Chris went in, infiltrated CARE, converted to Islam, stood next to them and did the Friday prayer. And every night, bravely, he snuck papers out of the building in the trunk of his car, took it into their safe house, and they built the case that ended up being CARE is an unindicted co-conspirator of Holy Land Foundation. They were unindicted not because there wasn't enough evidence. Again, for don't quote me on it, but almost 2 years of undercover work by Chris Gobbets built thousands upon thousands of pages of evidence, Lynz, of their cooperation, them being CARE's cooperation with funding or being funded by Islamic terrorist groups. That's why the name of the book is Muslim Mafia, because they couldn't take him down. Chris Gobbets himself testified in front of Congress with piles of evidence. So establishing CARE is a terrorist-funded front group of Hamas. That is no guess or estimation by me and you. It's fact, evidence is down. Why they haven't been convicted is where we come to this bill. You see, we have, both of us as believers, Lynz, we believe that, yes, we need money to pay our bills and not to starve. But when the greed for money starts is when it's the root of all evil. We have so many corrupt politicians on both sides of aisle who are willing to take money and keep quiet, don't push this kind of bills out, don't create Islamophobia, and allow the Islamization to continue in Western countries, specifically right now in America. So this guy or any other guy, we had barely ever had even a Republican to come out and call it what it is. They say the radical ones. And I have asked them, where do we cross the line from a good Muslim to a radical Muslim? Because as an ex-Muslim, I can tell you there is no radical versus moderate. The dictation is all the same. Kill them wherever you find them. Slay them wherever you find them. Oh, you who have believed, do not take Christians and Jews as your allies. That's the basis of a good Muslim. So these corrupt politicians are not going to side with me and you. No, they're going to side with places like CARE that has drained many American bank accounts based on their civil lawsuits of Islamophobia that poor Muslims are facing in America. And part of those documents, by the way, Lynz, was when Chris brought up evidence that a group of their lawyers aren't even lawyers. They never passed the bar, Lynz. And they're getting into our court system and winning cases. Can you believe that?
Well, if the U.S. Department of Treasury is shutting it down, right, and they're acknowledging that, then it's interesting that a super majority state, and I'm using us because we're ranked. I maybe the numbers have changed. Palmetto State Watch is really good about this stuff. Like they're more live coverage. I'm more niche, as you know, but I think our conservative voting record was ranked 49th in out of 50 states for the most liberal conservative voting record in the country. And so when I see a bunch of Republicans, super majority state, red, everyone's like, well, how can you have such your budget increasing? How can you have so many problems when you have so many Republicans? They're not. So I'm coming out now and saying, look, I told the GOP about this, South Carolina GOP, the national GOP. I came out and say, why are you not addressing this? I brought out the article. People think I'm a whack job and I'm crazy because I'm bringing this up. But our legislators are literally working with a terrorist funded and founded organization.
Mm-hmm.
So thereby, this makes the legislators terrorists because they are working with terrorists to get legislation passed. That's where I sit with this. You are not a friend to America. You are not a friend to South Carolina if you are working with a terrorist funded and founded organization on legislation. I don't care if you call it the pretty flower pot bill or you call it something else. If you're working with CARE and you've got Gary Brewer that's saying the Constitution isn't good enough, you've got to reinforce it with this, and you've got South Carolina Representative Chris Murphy defending this on a YouTube video because a patriot was smart enough to do that video, and I'm the one that has the problem. No.
Well, the thing is, if you think about it, which is rare nowadays, as you know, Lynz, most people prefer not to think about things. It's just whatever Fox or CNN tells them, they believe it. But if you would think about it for a split second, if I would, this is a scenario, people, I'm not doing it, but if I would come and hire you to go kill someone and you were caught and you would admit that I hired you to do it, we would both be guilty of murder. It would be as like I pulled the trigger. So by law of the land, what you're describing is the law of the land. Those who collaborate and cooperate with the terrorist group that is a proven Islamic terrorist group are by definition part of that Islamic terrorist group. As you said, it doesn't matter how we sugarcoat it or not sugarcoat it. People need to realize in our government, regardless of how happy or upset we are with the president currently, the government itself is way beyond and above one person. Our local governments, the state government, federal government, we have people who have officially decided to side with the enemies of United States of America. A long time ago, I did a video, 2017, and I called it Linda Sarsour, the enemy from within. Every single one of these people are helping the destruction of America. They're funding our own demise. And for anybody to think you're crazy or I'm an Islamophobe, whatever it is, the new labels, I lose track, they are part of the problem. They're not holding anybody accountable. Based on our Constitution, by the way. Our Constitution is pretty clear. No foreign law shall be practiced in the United States of America. Every single one of these CARE members who are going to mosque and reading Reliance of the Traveler, also known as Sharia book, they are practicing a foreign law because Sharia is the system of Islamic laws. Right there, if you had one person with backbone to implement the law or enforce the law, right there, every single one of these people should be removed from, well, freedom should be removed from them because they are going against our Constitution by practicing a foreign law that is absolutely against our laws.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm personally done with it. And it was interesting because in church yesterday, God was really talking to me about this area. And I just was like, I was getting so worn down trying to say this message and just trying to hold these people accountable. But if they're working so hard to ignore it, if they're working so hard to do nothing about it, then they know what's happening and they don't care. But I'm here to say that I care about South Carolina. I care about America. And I will tell you that CARE does not, Council on American Islamic Relations doesn't. They are not a friendly organization. They should be dismantled, and removed from America. And if they don't like it, then they can pack it up and go back to the countries that support their terrorist laws. I'm not okay with it. And if you're an American citizen and you're a part of it, maybe you should rethink where your allegiance lies. Is it with a terrorist organization or is it really with America?
Well, I actually, it's funny you say that. 2 days ago, or maybe 3 days ago, I put a tweet and a Facebook post out and said, should DOJ start an investigation into CARE for their collaboration with Hamas? And most of the comments were like, is that even a question? Well, I'm sorry. Yes, it is a question. You know why it's a question? Because they've been running in the background for years and nobody even bothered. I'm hoping the new DOJ is going to emphasize and specifically put together a task. They don't even need to do investigation. All they need to do, again, go back to Muslim Mafia. Go knock at Chris Gobbett's door and say, can we get those evidence, please? Because this time we're seriously going to convict these people. We're going to
Yeah.
get an indictment and put them in prison. And those of them who are naturalized citizens, because here's the thing, surprise. By law of the land, here in the United States of America, if you're a naturalized citizen and you commit a felony, let alone terrorism, a federal judge can easily revoke your citizenship. I think that should happen to some of them, and they should be
Mhm.
deported. Am I being dramatic? No, I'm being American. We have the Judeo-Christian values for a reason. We cannot
Mhm.
sit here and allow a bunch of people who genuinely hate what we stand for and for many years have said they're going to take us down and build their own Islamic caliphate in the White House. We can't sit by and watch them do it. Here's the thing, Lynz. Let me ask you a question. CARE. Can you think of one case when CARE did something to benefit America or Americans?
No. I've been investigating this for several months, and that's why I'm very careful about what information I put out. And it's really interesting that it's like a minor conservative group, South Carolina Freedom Caucus, that actually cares about this stuff.
Mhm.
And whenever they've tried to bring amendments forward, like all of a sudden our South Carolina, I'm not going to go into this, but South Carolina Speaker of the House, Merle Smith, is getting credit for banning diversity, equity, inclusion in our universities. But it was years ago that Josiah Magnuson, South Carolina Freedom Caucus member Josiah Magnuson, who was kicked out of the Republican caucus, um, was told he brought an amendment for it to defund DEI in our colleges, but they wouldn't do it because they didn't want to work with them. And now all of a sudden Trump's doing it, so now they're going to do it so that way they look good for next election cycle and try and take
Bingo.
credit.
Bingo.
Yeah.
That's my
So
biggest problem, Lynz. Every
yeah.
time people like me and you start zooming in, focusing on an elected official to expose them, they go into the I'm a good person, I'm doing what people want me to do. And immediately Americans tend to forget what was before. They forget how we got here. They keep
Mhm.
repeatedly electing the same people who, in action, helped the destruction of America, but by words made empty promises. That's the part I don't understand about my fellow Americans, Mike. Goldfish memory much? Do we need to repeat ourselves? I feel like a broken record. Now, you say few months of care. I have dealt with care, and I mean dealt directly. In 2018, I had an event in Boston, Massachusetts, speaking engagement put together by a group of veterans. And when all the phone calls to the venue failed by CARE to make threats to make him shut down my event, CARE the headquarters put out a press release that Aynaz Anni Cyrus, the anti-Muslim and Islam speaker, shall be shut down with all means necessary. Liz, you know what that means. I know what that means.
It's a hit job.
Since 2018, I've been dealing with them. Since 2018, I not only I have studied them, they came after me. They put a bounty on my head, but that's all right because FBI doesn't think that meant a hit job. That meant don't go to her event. That's how FBI translated that letter, by the way, just so you know. And police decided that I should stop provoking them. I should stop talking about CARE in a negative way so they wouldn't come after me. Imagine what I had to face when I'm like, oh, I see. Okay, so my freedom of speech doesn't exist. And the fact that I'm a journalist. I have facts behind what I'm claiming, and you're telling me to
Exactly.
shut up so they wouldn't be upset to come after me? Since
Exactly.
2018, it's been 7 years that I have dealt with CARE. I've monitored them. I have studied them. I read every single press release they put out. And every single step they take is to take down America as we know it. They hate our freedoms. I don't care how much fancy ties and tuxedos and suit they wear. Underneath all of that, they're all members of Islamic terrorism.
And so just to kind of close us out, and I'm going to have Annie back. I'm going to talk to her about that off this show. But let me just tell you guys something. Chris Murphy was the head of Judiciary Committee, and he blocked all anti-human trafficking legislation, all of it. Republican legislators and Democrat legislators brought things forward. So guess what? Do you know that the Islamic State is actively working with the cartel in human trafficking in South Carolina, in all 50 states in America? Did you know that? So not only did he not bring this bill up out of judiciary when he was in judiciary and head of judiciary, not only is he working with a terrorist founded and funded organization on legislation, but he also knowingly blocked all anti-trafficking legislation where these guys actually work with different mafia, different cartel organizations, and all of these things. And this is what we're going to start digging down into. So these people, these men are not friends of America. They're not friends of South Carolina. And they most certainly should be investigated for their ties and their support with a terrorist founded and funded organization. Annie, thank you so much. I know this was a really short podcast. And guys, my show is still called I Am Silent No More, but it's Counter-Terrorism. And I don't know how long we'll be on this new season of Counter-Terrorism. I'll be uploading all my old episodes into Rumble and things from Patriot TV, so you guys can follow back on some of that. But please go to my website, lynz.co. Annie, thank you so much for coming on. I love you, dear. Go up to her website, liveuptofreedom.com, follow what she's doing, pay attention, get that Muslim Mafia book and read it. We've got some other training that's going to be coming up here in South Carolina shortly to learn how to figure this stuff out. But anyways, go to my website, lynz.co. Please contribute. There's a donation contribution button. You help fund my investigations by helping me support me in what I'm doing. This helps me with a number of different things. So thank you so much for tuning in. You can go to ifani.com/Lynz also to get your America's Most Secured Mobile Network. Got people asking me all about it. Go there. I have my entire family on that plan. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And
Before
thank you,
we go,
Annie.
Lynz, well,
Yes.
first of all, thank you, love you much. But let me do what I should do at the beginning as your producer. By the way, Lynz has given me the privilege and honor to produce her show. Moving forward, for that, thank you for your trust in me, Lynz. She will be back every Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We had a bit of a late start today because we were setting up the first show. Every Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on her channels, on X America News channels. And she's doing an amazing job. So I just wanted to say, come back every Monday, 10 a.m. If you can't be live at 10 a.m., that's okay. It will be archived, but you can come on at 10 and get involved, put comments on. Today, I'm her guest. I'm not paying too much attention behind the scene, but moving forward, I will be looking at your live comments. I will get them to her so she can engage with you, your question, your concerns, your comments. And with that, thanks, Lynz.
Thank you so much, guys. And we'll look forward to seeing you back next week.